I've been enjoying all the Levi with Levi episodes. I like it. Reminds me because when I first started, or I had a podcast before Dualistic Unity, and it was just me kind of talking through things. And sometimes I'll film videos like that too, and just the willingness to go into a video like that and not really know where it's going to go, and like the willingness to have some of that space early where you're just kind of like, I don't know, I'm not really sure where this is going to go or what's going to be said, because like it doesn't matter, like who are you sharing for, who are you talking for. Like I certainly gotten so caught up in like, oh, having to share something insightful or like express something about my life in a way that's going to like help someone or something. And like even in this conversation right now, like that was just kind of what was on my mind, and a side of me was like, are like, I don't know, there's no like starting point. We don't come up with topics beforehand, but I appreciate your episodes so much, and like the willingness to just like relax and not expect so much out of yourself. Yes.
Yeah. No, it is really interesting because I'm also noticing like how it's quite fun, to just talk to myself, sort of. It's like it's surprising me a bit, like how kind of enjoyable it actually is to record them also. And yeah, it's yeah, I had something there, but yeah, I guess what's interesting about it is just kind of it is all these things that are happening throughout the call that is kind of that I find very amusing, like when I'm kind of losing my track of thought, and it's like it's very fun to be able to kind of play with that and talk about it, and I feel like that just makes it makes it lighter for myself, sort of, to just you know there's no secrets, like I'm not yeah, there's something there about like I like in my a part of me is like you shouldn't, right? Because it's like we should act like we always know what we're doing and saying and all that shit. But it's just so freeing to just not care about it. And yeah, I mean, what's the problem like with forgetting? I'm even talking to myself and I'm thinking it's a problem. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's yeah.
Straight up, dude. Like even this morning, like my mind's been kind of quiet throughout. Sometimes even on our yoga episodes, I'll start thinking like, oh, I should, you know, share something. I haven't said something for a while, like just like drop a little something or say something, and like there can be a pull, and then I'm like, why? Like,
Mm.
what is that? Like, Levi's leading this, people are following, I'm following along. Like, there isn't something required of you all the time aside from, if you're expressing, just express whatever's there and not hold yourself to a bar so much. And then if someone else is expressing something, like just pay attention to that and not like jump to assumptions or conclusions about it so much. And even now, like I was thinking of something as you were talking before, and then kind of went in one direction. I was like, I feel a pull now to like, wait, what was that thing that I was thinking of before? Like I want to go back to that, but like that's okay. You don't have to put yourself up to a bar, because a lot of that I think is almost like social conditioning, and that idea, oh, that was what I was thinking of with like, enlightenment or whatever. People like are always striving to get to a point where like they're on the extreme of like almost being perfect, instead of the other end of the spectrum being like, oh, I was always doing all right. I was just assuming that I should have been more. Like, wait, I don't have to be more. And then it doesn't mean that you change necessarily. You just don't take yourself as seriously. So you let yourself like fall and stumble and mess up more. And there's not so much like a oh, I should be doing differently, or I got to tense up and do better, perform better, like be perfect for this situation. Like, no, you can like cut yourself some slack, if anything. Like that's the biggest thing I think I've realized is just like you can cut yourself some slack. People aren't usually assuming the same things about yourself that you are, or even doing much of that outside of themselves.
Yeah.
But
No, I totally agree. Uh, it's yeah. Uh, once again, I had something to say, and then as I'm sitting here, I'm kind of trying to pull it back instead of just keep going, right? But yeah, yeah, it's yeah, yeah. There it came back. So it's basically about the whole it's the reaction to what's happening, right? That's the whole problem. Like that is the only problem. I feel like stumbling, thinking, feeling, all these things. They're just they're not a problem. Like it's like they're there. Maybe for a reason, or it's like, but it's not this thing we have to react to. And I really enjoy that. And I feel like, you know, when like sometimes I get caught up in reacting to things, but even that's not a problem. It's like it's just I feel this yeah, I'm going it's I don't know. It just feels so light when I'm not reacting to it. It's like it's almost like I feel like I've been focusing a lot lately on kind of just trying to sit more properly. Just because I actually find it more comfortable than sitting hunched. It's just that when I forget, I'm like, I'm going there. And I feel like, but anyway, uh, I I'm not sure if that was related, but it popped up anyway. And it's just anyway, yeah, that's why I said it. I'm kind of practicing kind of on the subway and stuff, and kind of just uh sitting a bit more properly, and I kind of feeling kind of it feels good. And but anyway, when I'm doing that, I'm quite present with because it's kind of like I'm very focused on the body, right, and the sensations that is coming with sitting more straight. And that brings so much emotion to the forefront of me. So I'm noticing, especially like when I'm there, because I'm not doing much. Like I'm trying not to like sit on my phone all the time. So I'm just sitting there and feeling it. And it's like these feelings, it's like it's so clear to me in that situation that it's just there. It's like it's nothing bad with it. Maybe it's intense, and but it's like there's nothing really bad about them. But that's what I'm reacting to when I'm kind of trying to escape. That's the feeling I'm reacting to. But it's like when I'm not kind of present, and yeah, if I'm a little bit lost in probably my thoughts, like then I'm reacting to it. So I'm doing things to get out of it. And I'm probably even thinking to get out of it, just to create some drama for myself. So it's very interesting to see, because I'm seeing so clearly this is just it's just here. It's just I feel like it's almost in front of me. Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna stop
oh
talking.
yeah, no, dude, that just I- as you were talking, that whole thing resonated so much because when you were like, and that's something too. And I hope that I don't completely lose what I was thinking before, but I'll respond to someone and say like, oh, I resonate with that, or I resonate with that, or whatever. And sometimes I'll think I'll say it too much. And I'm like, come up with another, or like, you don't have to say it. It's almost like I feel like I'm doing it for them to like connect with them in a sense. And it's like, don't have to, you can just jump to what you're saying. And then I'm like, all right, maybe I'm just overanalyzing everything way too much. And thinking again, because it's like whatever, say what you say, express what you express, do what you do, live your life. Like, don't, I don't know, just keep going. And but as you mentioned, the slouching versus the sitting upright and paying attention, like as I sat upright, I did notice I was kind of like out of my head a little bit, but then it was just almost like waves, as you were talking, just like waves of different feelings and potential thoughts that could go with certain things, and it was like this whole wash. And when I was just because I'll do the same thing, I'll slouch, but then when I'm sitting up, I kind of like it because it's almost like a workout in a sense. It's like I feel like I'm doing something, and maybe that's a side of like, always feeling like I had to do something to like be active. I couldn't just sit down and read a book. I had to go on a walk and like listen to the audiobook because then I could do two things at once, like being able to do more. But there was that sense of being just like in in reality more so. But then I noticed how much, if I do have certain feelings, like even you've mentioned eating a few times on Levi with Levi, and that sort of being a distraction from thoughts or feelings, because I'll have that happen too sometimes where it's like, oh, go make a bowl of oatmeal and put bananas in it. Like that'll taste good right now with some syrup or something. And just like get that thought. And then I'll be like, am I hungry? Like, no, not really. And then I can keep doing whatever I'm doing for like 10, 15 minutes and it kind of subsides. And sometimes I will. I'll go do that and like have that sort of response. And there's not something wrong one way or another, but it's just kind of noticing. And there is, I think, a seriousness to listening to your mind and those random fluttering thoughts all the time that can be a practice in not reacting or not responding or like making a choice separate from what your mind is saying or talking about. But I think sometimes those thoughts or even the experience of thinking, like you were saying, can be that response to, you know, when you are paying attention, there's a lot more feelings and emotions. So it's almost like a way to control the feelings. Like I want to think about something, positive. Like I used to look forward to something down the road a lot that would make me feel better. Was that just in response to like whatever I was feeling when I was paying attention in the moment that then distracted me? I wasn't as functional, but at least I wasn't feeling things as intensely. And it's like that's the trade. Like with more attention, there is more to feel, but you're at least fucking functional, instead of in your head, like lost in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And on the food thing, it's like it's kind of strange because sometimes I'm doing like uh, um, not like a long fast, but maybe I'm not eating until like 2 o'clock in the day, It's like, and then I can feel like the hunger, like real hunger. And it takes quite a while until you actually feel like, or at least the sensation of like the stomach is kind of asking for food. So I feel like there is this distraction eating is yeah, it is quite uh, yeah. It is like sometimes I even know what's happening. That's that's the thing. I'm like, but okay, let's make some food. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, but as you say, both are okay. Like there's no rules against eating eating an extra meal. That's also something I can actually share. It's just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I guess, I had this. Um, I mean, this is nothing new at all, but but I just had this realization that as long as I can remember, I don't think I've ever eaten in a non-extreme way. if you know what I mean. It's like
Yep.
either I've been on like a hard fast, or I've been on like, these high fat, low carb kind of deals, or I've been on only super healthy, like pure ingredients and all that shit. And then one day I was like, there's no balance. Like there's just no balance. I've never had that. Or I'm going on a full binge, That's the other extreme. So I've kind of been going between these 2 points. And then I just, I bought some bread and some, normal things you put on the bread. And, it's just, it just feels so much lighter to just eat. But I'm eating like it's good. It's just it doesn't feel forced. So I think like I've been going through like the pendulum in a way, like always, like, and of course it has to go back. It's almost like, oh, you're eating extremely healthy, and I feel like it's bound to go back. At least it has been in my experience. So there's something about finding the balance there too, like, because I've been like so afraid of carbs generally, like, but like eating a few pieces of bread, like it's really good. I like it. And I'm also feeling like sometimes for a while I ate this super healthy like porridge thing with like lenses and some sort of super grain and dates in it and a lot of good stuff in it. And it's just, and then in the morning I was like, or when I was eating lunch, usually it was like, I the body didn't want it. Like I almost felt like nauseous when I thought about this porridge. And then I thought about like the bread and it was like, yeah, so it's strange, like something super healthy, the body can kind of react to it. Um so I'm not sure if that's like just me wanting something else, but it's like it felt like sort of a little warning from the body, like, this is I don't think this is good for you. But anyway, it's yeah, I've talked for a long time now, so
Oh yeah, I'm not going to say that I resonate a lot with all that because I just went on that last spiel, but like the food stuff, I cannot tell you how extreme I've taken things in a very similar way, and I wonder because I've similarly, the last year or so been a lot more relaxed with food in general, and I've wondered about how much, it's like that element of control. We think we can be in control essentially. Like that was a big thing for me with fitness and nutrition, was like even just making assumptions about myself, like assuming that I have a massive appetite, and so I have to eat. If I want to lose weight, I can only eat high volume food because that'll allow me to eat a lot and like fill my stomach up, but then not, because it was at a calorie deficit, like not gain weight, and then, work out enough to balance out and have enough protein within those calories to make sure that I'm getting enough into my muscles, and like all of these things that like I don't really know. Like I don't know how having 250 grams of protein versus 100 is actually going to like impact my body, but I'll look up some studies and listen to some people because there's like underlying assumptions on assumptions on assumptions. Like if I look better, if my body looks good, that'll be better for me. People will like me more. I'll like myself more. And so then it like spans up based on other assumptions. Like, all right, well, this is what I have to do, how I have to eat. Oh, I came across another person like low carb, something. I think I did that for 4 days in a row once, keto. And it, worked, whatever that means. And that I wasn't even trying to lose weight. I was just like, oh, this is the right thing to do. And after 4 days, I was like, what am I doing? Like, am I gonna do this for the rest of my life or am I not? And I think that realization is honestly, now that I say it, like been a big one that's helped me in a lot of ways, just in general, whether it's diet, like, oh, I'm on this more extreme diet. Like, will I be able to do this for the rest of my life? The answer is like, no, I don't really like it. Like, it's not super balanced. Then that's usually when I kind of find a little bit more balance. But I guess that's the same with everything, like, oh, worrying about going into a certain situation, how I'm going to do, how I'm going to perform, am I going to be prepared enough? Like, am I going to do that for my entire life or not? Like, is that benefiting me at all? And if the answer is no, then it's like, all right, well, do I have to do that now? Has it benefited me at all up until this point? Like worry, anxiety, all that stuff, or like just focus on personal performance and being tense. But
Mm.
yeah, so that, but the food stuff, absolutely. Like
Mm.
just the extreme. It was like I've been extreme for a while and now I'm way more casual with it. Like, don't have a scale, don't have a food scale anymore. And that was like a constant throughout my day of like being aware, like, where I'm at with my lifts, how many calories have I consumed today versus not. And it's all that sort of sense of control. Like, I can know how I'm perceived,
Mm.
when that's going to be a question mark no matter what. So then all of those external things don't feel as necessary, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel you. And yeah, on the I was just got a thought with the whole am I gonna worry for the rest of my life? I just had this realization the other day, like walking by people on the street, random people, all sorts of people. It's like because I got that feeling, am I gonna like think about like how I'm supposed to properly pass someone, for the rest of my life? That was actually the thought. Is this like something? And it's like, because it's like, are we going to look at each other? Am I going to look another way? It's all these ridiculous things. Just walking by a random person on the street, it's like, and that's like, is this gonna take up my energy? you know? So it's all these things like how, but I'm feeling that it's not as heavy, the kind of the discussion that is going on in my head as it used to be. Because yeah, that was yeah, but it's so interesting. It's like, why, what is it? Is it like, what are you trying to achieve with like walking by this person the right way? It's like, just see what happens. It's like, what are you doing? Is that yeah, yeah. So anyway, just a fun thought I had the other day.
Oh, absolutely. Like, what's the end game here?
Mm.
Like, what am I really trying to achieve or accomplish? Even leading up to, like, we have more guest episodes coming up on the podcast, and there's a side of me that definitely gets a little bit more nervous in a way, like more anxiety going into like guest episodes. It's more, I don't know, not like uncertainty, but just more open-endedness. There's like, I don't know, a responsibility as a host in a sense, but also, there's three of us. So sometimes if a guest is talkative, like we don't even say much or share much. And it's like one way or another, the episode's gonna happen. Whether I say some weird shit, some stuff I don't think makes sense, whether I, you know, get, you know, caught in my head for a bit, like whatever happens, it's gonna happen. And then it's gonna end, and then there's gonna be another opportunity to like do stuff, to chat, to do all these things. But like leading up to things, I used to worry about situations for like days beforehand. If I had like like a presentation at work or a podcast episode or something, like I would worry down the road. And it's like that. It was, I guess, all this sense of control. Like if I think about this thing enough, then I don't even know. Like it'll go better. Did I really? do we really think that if we worry about something for a while that it'll go better, or is it just like, yeah, like how much time I spend thinking about it will translate into how well it goes, maybe? I don't really know. I can't come up with a good reason to do that. I guess there's a side of like preparation if you cover your bases enough, but then just the sitting thinking, like it's just not necessary or helpful, like at all.
It's not. And I remember that was one of the kind of, I think like one of the really early insights from, I don't know if it was from Dualistic Unity or like from your Instagram or something, but it was like, because it's so logical that it's only getting in the way, right? It's like, but so I guess it's just like a fair response to what's gonna happen. Like it's just, yeah, that's the only thing I can think about. Because yeah, but it's trying kind of to make sure, I guess, and that's not possible, right? So you can never know anything. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, like you can't tell the future. And that's all that the thoughts are, like the future worries or concerns. Like, if you're worried about just any sort of conversation, like the conversation starts and then you don't know where it's going to be in 2 minutes. Like you don't know where it's going to be, and by the end of it, you don't really know what you're going to talk about. But I do have that, I don't know, kind of memory sense of, I don't know, a few years ago, like even just having more structured conversations, not like typical societal dialogue, but just sort of like go-to things. Like for a podcast, for example, if someone was talking about a certain topic, like I remember I would have like go-to responses based on a certain thing, like how do you deal with anxiety or fear of the future or whatever? And it was like something from a book that I had read, and it was like a few things that I could just kind of pull from, as opposed to my mind being quieter and more like in the moment, whatever's there, like whatever pops, like there's more space for, given less structure, less like tools to rely on. It's like there's more space to be attentive to what's being said instead of just like paying attention for things that you can like that you have an opinion on or a
Mhm.
response to, I guess, and letting things be a little bit more open-ended and willing to, also a big one for me is like willing to not have anything to say, like willing
Mhm.
to be quiet, because that was kind of the thing, especially through high school, where I was like, I shouldn't be quiet. And I've had, even just in the last week, some situations where I'll be like with a group of people and I'll start to have that sort of thought trickle, like I haven't said something for a while. And then it's like this push, like, should be saying more, should be saying more. And then that's all I can hear. And then it's like, it almost, it can feel like a pit a little bit until you realize, oh, I'm like placing something on top of the potential to think, whether it's an assumption or an assumption that, you know not saying enough. It's like that's then what you're thinking about instead of not like having more of that space. Like there's more of a sensitivity to how many assumptions I'm making, and so I can, I don't know, kind of catch them more easily. But if I
Mhm.
don't, then it's like, yeah, it can feel like a pit sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I have the same, or it's a lot better, of course, but it's like that was a big thing because I was really afraid of not saying something, and there was like two things that happened, and one was that I just said a lot of unnecessary shit, just very like just filling an empty space, but also like being so afraid of the silence, right? That just really strangles like the space, right? To see what's there and hear what other people are even saying. So it's like just listening to you now speak. It's like I kept trying to kind of have these things to say, right? And it's changed, and it's like, but it's like yeah, the best thing is to actually let it go, but that's the most scary thing, right? Because then you don't know, do I have something to say when you're done talking? It's like, who knows? But then again, like if you're not willing to sit there and be silent for a little bit, then you will have something ready. It's like you will hold on to one of those things and just bring them here, no matter what you're currently talking about. So yeah, I feel that very much.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and it's like staying relaxed throughout. And as you're talking there, I got the thought that like, oh, I've been kind of just paying attention to what you're saying throughout this episode, like haven't gotten pulled by too many thoughts. Whereas sometimes in conversations, like I'll have a thought pop up and then like I'll really try to hold on to it instead of almost like loosely, like, oh, that's something that fluttered up, but my priority is paying attention, is staying relaxed instead of, no, this is going to be the best thing to say in response. And it almost comes from a sense of not like a, not, it, I was going to say superiority, but I don't think it's that. I think it's more like self expectation, like just having expectations of yourself. And then when there aren't so many, you have more of an ability to kind of face anything. And it's from the inverse approach where it's like you're not trying to be the best, you're not trying to be perfect, you're not expecting anything from yourself, like anything at all. Like you start listening, it's like your mind's kind of empty and you're just listening and there aren't so many thoughts. And there's a side of that that's scary. It's like petrifying. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so used to always having thoughts going on. And then it's like when there's none, then, oh, will I be able to handle this? And as soon as there's like a bit of panic, it's like, I don't know, like gotcha. And then
Mm,
you're like, fuck, then I gotta, try to pay attention instead of being like, no, that's part of it too. Like even the panic, even the expectation can be part of it. And I don't have to, expect myself to not have expectations because that's kind of doubling down or like assume
yeah.
that I should never feel whatever pops up when I, straighten my shoulders up and start feeling a little bit more, just kind of letting it wash through, letting the thoughts float by, letting the feelings float by, and just being cool if someone does get to the end of a topic or conversation, just be like, ah, I got I got nothing. And that's and that's
Yeah.
okay because I'm cool with me. Like I don't need anything from you.
I think that's where it's all coming from. It's like this need to be something or be liked or be successful and all that shit. So yeah.
Who's that for? Really
Mm,
crazy. Because like you ask that question and it's like, well, yeah, that's absurd. That's absurd to like try and live for someone else or like be successful for someone else or live your life for someone else. It's like you're not really living it for someone else as much as it's just making assumptions about what they expect. I guess sometimes people tell you what you should and shouldn't do, and then it
mm.
does. You are kind of like trying to live up to
But
expectations.
they don't even know what they should. They don't know what they like. If they tell me to be a certain way, then they're getting like this unauthentic version of me. It's like, is that what they want? Like, I don't think so, but maybe they don't want the authentic me. But that's also an option, right? To not interact, right? So it's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense from any angles. And yeah, because we're just there's it's just that everything is assumptions. It's like everyone is assuming something and trying to live up to these assumptions that you think they have, and it's like it's a very intricate thing. uh yeah.
Oh yeah, and like then you start to realize that they don't actually exist anywhere outside yourself. Like you could like hear someone say something for sure, but for the most part, like, even the fear of judgment, like it's it's very judgmental, like assuming that someone's judging you, like assuming they're like I saw a TikTok about that a few months ago, and it just like I was surprised I never really heard it or thought of it like that, but it is like if you're petrified of being judged, like yeah, there is the side where people can to your face like judge you, but most of the time when it's in your head or you get a look from someone, you're like, oh, they must be, you know, they're definitely judging me. Like
Mm.
you don't
Yeah.
really you don't really know that. It's just kind of it starts with it starts with you. And that's where, I don't know, self-honesty can run pretty deep because it's like it can start and end with you, your whole experience. It's like your response, your choice, as opposed to being on someone else because like that it's not. But it can feel like that for a long time, looking for validation.
Yeah. No, I heard an actor, I think it was an actor who kind of talked to another actor who was kind of younger, and I think this is how it happened. And the point is the same anyway. But and then he was kind of talking about auditions and how he was nervous about them and stuff like that. And this other actor was saying like, this is actually the easiest place in the world because everyone there really wants you to do well. It's like that's what they want. That's why they've invited you. They want you to kind of, do your thing. Of course, there is judgment in terms of you're not right for this role because now we've seen it, but it's like, it's generally people are kind of want you to kind of do well or whatever that means. Yeah, I thought that was a bit interesting as well.
Definitely. And even like want you to do well, but also like be willing to stumble. Like I appreciate so much when someone doesn't take themselves seriously and is like willing to, you know, not be perfect or make a fool of themselves, but then, I'll hold on tightly to that. Like take myself really seriously. Oh, wait a second. I don't really have to. And then when you're not as much, there is more space for relaxation, like more space. Again, not from that side where it's like trying to do everything right, but like just like I was saying before, the extreme end of like being willing to do everything wrong, like being willing to do everything poorly, everything terribly. And then because that doesn't really, the expectation doesn't impact your experience. Like it doesn't impact your action so much. If you expect yourself to do perfectly, or if you are willing to be quote unquote imperfect or like do poorly based on your own judgment, like that has nothing to do with how it actually goes. Or like in sports, like trying to win the game doesn't help you when you're going to, catch a ball or do whatever. Like there's no crossover or correlation besides if you're trying to like do better, you're going to be a little more tense. And then it's like you're going to have to cope with that, or you're going to do things to try and do that instead of just dropping all the expectations. And then you're way more capable
Yeah.
of handling everything that life throws at you.
Yeah. I feel that's where society has really messed up in like the work life because it's like it's all about, performance and, expectations and it's just putting unnecessary pressure. It's like there's no logic in it. Like I can understand like the need for control, to like we need to do something. It's like, but it's just taking you farther away um from the task or whatever you're doing, right? It's like if you're here not worrying about the boss, you'll do a better job than worrying about. But maybe you'll work longer because you're scared of the boss. But um, I for sure not work better. Like, yeah, that's
Definitely.
mm,
Yeah, it's like there's a balance there where it's like holding yourself accountable, but also not expecting yourself. I guess focusing, it's just like focusing more on what you're doing than like how you're doing, or like how you're spending your time versus how you're doing while you're spending your time. And I think that that can be a big shift, is like prioritizing just the action as opposed to like the performance.
mm,
But I think with society, a lot of it can get, you can get really tied up with focusing on your performance as opposed to what you're doing. And then you can focus so much on like just a little action in the performance, or like a small amount of time in the performance during that, that you miss like all the other time that you have to do things
mm,
also. And that's, whether you're pretty focused on yourself or are you not. But there's the side of not focusing on yourself that feels frightening. Like, it feels scary when even talking about like, oh, I don't think about myself as much, or like, don't think about yourself as much. Like, to the ego, to someone's sense of self, like, that sounds petrifying. Like, what do you mean, don't think about myself? Like, just let myself go. Like, even that's seen as like, oh, you're really letting yourself go. Like, is that the worst thing to do? A lot of that's like just comes down to relaxation, I think. But even that can get, you know, assumed to be laziness, the relaxation, when
mm,
that's not the case. It's like you can relax and still do a bunch of stuff.
yeah. So I always get pushback when I'm talking about relaxation as kind of something I'm kind of experiencing as something very nice, right? And it's always going straight to the lazy part of it. And yeah, there's like I don't feel it's not it's two different things. Like, kind of it's almost like the more relaxed, like the more energy to do stuff, right? And be whatever you are. So it's so interesting because it's like relaxed on like yeah, it's not like ah, it's not like you know, it's more like yeah, I don't know, the
Yeah,
mind is just not so much there. Yeah,
for
maybe.
sure. Yeah, it's like a mental relaxation more
Mm,
so. Like, I think relaxation's thought of as physical, you know. So like that's the only way we really think about it, like mental relaxation. Even the thought of, or the experience, thought, whatever, of not having so many thoughts can be frightening. But then if someone's like really caught up in their head, they're like, oh, I wish my mind would stop. But then like you get some experiences where it is quieter, and there can be almost the side of panic with that, because it feels like such a companion. So like even the statement, I think therefore I am, like that's absurd, that we've actually become so obsessed or addicted to thinking and like a constant stream of thought, that that's how we assume that like the only way to exist
mm,
is via thinking all the time, and like your mind just yapping all the
mm,
time. And I wonder how much like buying into that, taking it seriously, like before we were talking about eating, when you get a thought that's like, oh, go do this. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to remember almost like, is that how I would live? Was just like every time a thought fluttered up, either like fighting it or doing it or following it.
mm.
I I don't know, but it
Yeah,
is, yeah.
For a while, I was like, I was with very specifically food. I was just like, I was so tired of fighting it that my new strategy at that point, which was also extreme, of course, was to kind of say yes to everything. You know what I mean? It was like, yeah, whatever. Like, but that's buying into it in the same way. Maybe maybe it's better actually, but it's still giving kind of attention to the thought, right? It's the same whether you try to resist it or you embrace it. It's kind of like, yeah, it is still kind of yeah, getting caught up in the thought, I guess. So yeah, that was a big shift when I kind of uh, yeah, saw that I could just let them be, and just do something else. That's like, it's sort of like you don't have to react to it. That's the thing. So yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's like when it's a should versus a shouldn't. And you can get really caught up too in like, and I think that's what OCD is, like the don't step on a crack, you'll break your mom's back. Or, I've even gotten caught up in times just like where my mind is just like going back and forth in even in like a bathroom, like, oh, don't like look in the mirror, don't look in the mirror. And it'll be like this really weird thing where it's like, you look in the mirror, you're being self-absorbed, don't do that. But like, if you don't look in the mirror, then you're like listening to your mind. It's like, I don't know, this happened to me once, and it was like such a strange thing where I assumed that like there was a right thing to do, or like that if I listen or don't, it means something about me, instead of like I had something to prove, instead of, with the food stuff, just like, an option. Do I need to do that now? Maybe not. Maybe I can in a bit. Versus like, yeah, I can do that. And that's cool. Like that's okay. It doesn't mean something about me because I listen to my mind
Mm.
necessarily. I do have to get going pretty soon here, Levi.
Yeah,
But
let's wrap it up then.
sounds great. This has been
Yeah,
this has been a blast as always.
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, thanks for another awesome yoga session and post chat. And yeah, we can get one booked for next week too, if that
Yeah,
works for you.
sounds good. I cannot on Monday, but I can the Tuesday if you're, yeah,
Okay,
if that works, just yeah, then that works for me at
cool.
least.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
Tuesday, same time. Sounds good.
yeah, perfect.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Yeah. All right,
Well,
then see you.
see you, man. Have a good night.
You too.